And we are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino, on this Super Bowl Sunday. My co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir. How are you?
Doing great. A little sad, as always, as anyone should be on the day of Super Bowl Sunday, because there's that realization that there's not going to be football for a while. We're not gonna hang on that too long. There's a really good game going to happen tonight, but it sucks. It sucks that now we have to go this long stretch of time without ball.
I know this is going to sound hyperbolic, mainly due to the fact that just because we're a college football show, but when we launched a second show and you and I were talking about doing something on Saturdays, we could have gone NFL. We could have gone any direction that we wanted to go. Brother, I got to tell you something. As soon as college football is over, my mind shifts. It really does. I mean, I like the NFL. Mm-hmm. Like I really enjoy the NFL. Don't get me wrong. Like I stay in tune with it. Like as an example, Jaden Daniels winning the Offensive Rookie of the Year, or
so you pay attention to the LSU guys, is what you're saying?
No, not really. Well, I was going to say like your boy from Toledo who goes to the combine runs a 4.33, right, and then is a part of the Defensive Rookie of the Year. How Philadelphia is back in the Super Bowl, Quinyon Mitchell, right? Mm-hmm. So how they're back in the Super Bowl. Joe, they're drafting a corner from Toledo, for crying out loud. I mean, like, I love the NFL. I love the draft. I love being a part of it. But, man, I love college football, and there's a difference. There's a difference of wanting to be a part of something and then loving something else. My mind tunes out. So I'm with you, but here's the God's honest truth for your boy here. We're less than a week away from college baseball, and there is absolutely
okay. See, this is where you lose me. Because my take is no ball being on until August.
Would you rather watch college basketball? By the way,
yeah, actually, I don't mind college basketball.
By the way, talking about college basketball. Did you see CBS's spreadsheet of numbers being down? College basketball might be in a little bit of trouble. It might be in a little bit of trouble.
I think that there's a lack of talent, and the NIL aspect has had an opposite effect for basketball. And this is a completely like in the weeds discussion, but for college football, we're getting better teams because guys are more experienced and they're older. In college basketball, we got a bunch of 24-year-old dudes that aren't even really that athletic, that aren't even really that good because they can't move on to the NBA, that are just sticking around, and they're never going to go play in the NBA. So it's just a bunch of old dudes. It's not college basketball anymore. It feels like I'm watching semi-pro. That is interesting that those numbers are down.
Those numbers are drastically down. But by the way, I say this to say this too. Okay. MLB The Show 25.
Oh, dude, I'm juiced up for that. I couldn't be more juiced up for that.
If you now listen, this is the truth. Don't just take it from me. Go do your own research. LSU baseball is the pinnacle of college baseball because of Skip Bergman and all that stuff. If you do not do a road to glory or road to the show with LSU, I am going to cancel this show outright.
I'm not using LSU. No, come on.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been very good on this Sunday. But in all honesty, you got to take it in all honesty.
Yep.
I mean, look, well, you can't see this, but Skeens signed LSU baseball helmet. You got the stuff in here from the baseball team. I love that college athletics are coming a little bit more to the forefront in these video games. Joe, it makes the whole thing bigger, right? And so you had my curiosity when you played the trailer. Now you have my undivided attention. That's going to be really fun to go to high school, college, and then the pros.
Yeah, I'm glad that they brought that back. And I know that this is definitely not a football conversation. I wish more games would do this. All I'm going to say, if the college football video game, which has been speculated that they're going to put their own version of this into the game, I will be floored. They need to. That was when 2K did it for one of the games, and then when you used to be able to do it in NCAA 14, it was one of the most unique and entertaining game modes. And Road to the Glory in the current college game, it sucked. It was pretty lame. It wasn't very fun.
Yeah, it wasn't. Well, it was hard. It was a little too hard, right? Like, pause.
You couldn't progress.
But you couldn't progress. You had to use the cheat code to get your player all the way up. And I mean, it wasn't fun. Yeah, they got to make it a little bit easier. Like I'm there to play. Like don't make me, come on, make it a little bit easier. Yeah. But you're right. 2K, when they did, by the way, I was always a UCLA point guard. I love the prestige of it. So, yeah, it's true. All right. We got tons to get into. Speaking of video games and guys that look like in real life playing like a video game, Joe, Marshall Faulk is going to be the next running backs coach of Colorado. Deion getting 2 Hall of Famers to be a part of his coaching staff. Marshall Faulk and Warren Sapp will be a part of it. Ryan Day gets an extension.
Yep.
Florida Gators has 97 coordinators. We got to talk about that. And Kevin Kelly is going to be the director of player acquisition and evaluations at Clemson. Has Dabo Swinney coming to the new age?
I'm intrigued to discuss that one because we were talking a little bit pre-show of like what that means for Dabo, what it means for the sport, going and grabbing guys with a ton of NFL experience. The Marshall Faulk news is awesome, though. Like that was when I texted you this morning with topics. Like that was one that I had the back of my head the whole time. Like the minute this thing gets inked, we need to talk about it. I love that Deion is doing this and is putting together a coaching staff that's just loaded with great former players. Doesn't have to always be Hall of Famers. Just all of these guys that want to coach and help these young men succeed. Maybe that's what they need for their run game to improve. I know that it's a little more complicated than that. I obviously know that it's more complicated.
And listen, I feel like you're putting a massive Band-Aid on the overall problem.
Yeah, the offensive line is the bigger issue. The scheme is a little bit of an issue.
Yeah. How about you actually run the football? I mean, you can't be one of the last teams in attempts and last teams in rushing yards and say we got Marshall Faulk. Now, Marshall Faulk's a little bit different because I think I'm going to take it in a different avenue. No one caught the ball out of the backfield more than Marshall Faulk. Nobody. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the greatest show on turf. By the way, it's ironic we're going to talk about Marshall Faulk. I ironically finally got to watch the Kurt Warner movie.
Was it any good? It looked pretty shit.
I actually liked it because I think when, having 2 children and understanding like, hey, bro, this dude's coming off the street. He's got a kid with special needs. Trent Green goes down. I think it hit me a little bit different considering the home life that he had. You got a tornado coming through. I mean, it's very interesting. I mean, is it a great movie? No, but the storyline of what was happening, I think, it was pretty awesome. So we'll talk on that. Joe, I went and looked this up today. I bookmarked some things from December the 1st.
Okay.
Ryan Day gets a massive extension, but I remember on November the 30th when they lost to Michigan, December the 1st, when people were calling for him to be fired. And yes, I did go and bookmark some tweets today.
I'm afraid to find out which ones you've bookmarked.
Oh, Barstool had a couple,
Oh, nothing of ours. Nothing of ours, though.
No, if you want to call it the truth, we both said calm down. Literally all of us.
I mean, I kind of remember me specifically saying.
No, but you didn't say go out there and outright fire him. You said that maybe he should move on. You didn't say to fire him. I think that's a pretty big difference. Okay. And then Florida. Joe, I'm really intrigued by the Florida Gators, man. I really am. I gotta be real with you. Defensively, I think we'll talk about today is a little bit different. I think Michigan and Florida remind me of a lot of one another, if I'm being real. Different teams and how they're going to do things, but the way they both ended the season is very intriguing to me, and so we'll talk about the Florida Gators as well. Man, maybe Billy, getting his teeth kicked in and then finishing the season the way that he did, maybe it's good not to overreact.
I just don't know how many co-defensive coordinators you need. And the problem is that this is going to be
a title.
The problem – why do so many guys need the title? Who's the actual decision maker? This isn't going to be a story that we really get the context. Maybe it works, but I have never seen a coaching staff do this. To me, that's like if you work in an office and your department has 3 managers, like just your team and your department has 3 managers reporting to the head man. It's too many people. It's too many people that there is a funnel for. You can't make up your mind. And that usually screams disorganization. And the problem that Billy has had hasn't been from talent acquisition. It has not been from player development. It hasn't been any of those things. It's been disorganization. So we're doing this all over again. We're starting it over. And I'll save that for when we get to that segment. It's just, it's mind-blowing to me.
Does he have to give these people these titles to get them to come there?
That's even worse.
It is and it isn't, but I'm very intrigued by the way they finished recruiting. I'm very intrigued by the way they finished the season. I don't know how to feel about them defensively, though. But when we get to that, listen, man, they're a problem. They're going to be a problem for a lot of teams, man.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah. A problem for a lot of teams, regardless of the chaos that's around it. All right, let's get rolling here. Joe, before we get rolling, let's talk about our good friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Today is the day for the Super Bowl. Tell everybody what they can do.
Yes, so my favorite game over at Underdog Fantasy that I've brought up multiple times, they do a higher or lower game where you can project yards, touchdowns, receptions, those kind of things for particular players. My favorite one right now, Patrick Mahomes, higher than 30.5 rushing yards. There's a good defensive line for the Eagles. They're going to be chasing him down this entire game. He's going to need to evade pressure. There's going to be a lot of extra opportunities for him to scurry away for first downs. So I like that one. And I also love the idea of Hollywood Brown, who is returning to the lineup, going over 40.5, higher 40.5 receiving yards. And if you want to partake in these takes, these picks that I have, go on over to Underdog Fantasy. You can put together your own slip of guys that you want to take higher or lower on. And if you use code AYS, you can get a free pick and up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Today's the day to do it. Get to test it out, play around on the Super Bowl, and then you could do basketball, baseball, whatever it is during the offseason. But don't miss out. Today is going to be your last day to do it for football and make the Super Bowl even more fun to follow along with.
It's not missed upon me. I want to say this before we get to the break and talk college football. As Bourbon Street is packed right now for the Super Bowl, it's not missed upon me that a lot of people that I formerly worked with, and being inside the state of Louisiana, Joe, I am very honored to be a part of this state. I'm very honored that the Super Bowl did not get moved. I get chills about after having a terrorist attack on our community. It has not been easy. This affected, a lot of people, it's not a big town. It's not a big state. Now, it produces a lot, and it has a lot of culture. You knew somebody that died that day. Tiger Besh from Princeton. His brother played at LSU. His family played at LSU. His dad was there. His uncle was there. As I see Bourbon Street filling out right now, I get very – all right. Let's get moving here. So, Joe, the national champions have made a decision with their head coach, giving him a massive extension in Ryan Day. It is not missed upon me that on November the 30th, after Michigan upset Ohio State yet again and beat him yet again, that a lot of people were calling for him to be fired. But then he goes on a 4-game winning streak in the playoffs to win a national championship. Joe, Ryan Day getting a pretty massive extension here. And listen, I think it's warranted. He's 70-10 in his career. He's 5-3 in playoffs. Outside the COVID year where he didn't play double-digit games, he's never had a season where he hasn't won 11 games. There's only one other coach that's currently in college football that can say that. That is Kirby Smart. This extension, to me, Joe, of a guy being 1-1 in national championships, averaging at minimum 11 wins a season in a regular year, this is more than warranted that Ryan Day has got this extension. And look, man, sometimes we need coaches to, learn and figure some things out. Ryan Day has done that, and the reigning national champion coach gets an extension.
The whole thing that's really funny to me about all this, so now he's the second highest paid coach. His buyout is enormous. So there's not going to really be, I think it's like in the 70s, there's not going to be any discussion for a while about him possibly getting fired. If there's like a total meltdown in the next couple of years, this extension is guaranteeing that they're giving him grace. And I don't think Ryan Day is the type of a coach to have a low floor. He's the type of coach that is, if things go wrong, they go 9-3. That would be worst case this upcoming year. And it's certainly possible with all that they're replacing. But what I find really funny about this, and this is less to do with just the natural public perception, but losing to Michigan was so significant. It was so significant to the degree that it was a motivator for them to go on to win the national championship and to play to their potential. What happens if they lose to him again this year? Because right now, that's the one thing that he hasn't accomplished. Where does that affect his legacy and how we talk about him as a coach? Justifiably, him winning a national championship is a make good for all of the losses It really should be. And I know maybe Ohio State fans don't completely agree with that, but winning a national title is the end goal of all end goals. Beating Michigan is something that you want to do along the way. And if you don't do it now because the expanded playoff, you could still go on and win a national title, as it was proven this year. But I can't help but keep thinking about this, that he is one of the worst coaches at Ohio State going up against Michigan. And he's getting extended, and he's going to be here for a very long time, as he should be. How does this picture look if he still can't get past them? Because losing to them this year at home at their weakest in the last 5 years, when they're only going to start getting better and better, how do we perceive this? How do we look at this? Because the conversation was easy this year. I don't know how we're supposed to do it next year.
I know how I can look at it. Ohio State fans can have, and Michigan fans can have all of the difference of opinion because they're in it. They're fans of those teams. What's the realistic nature of this? The realistic nature of it is Joey's averaging over 12 wins a season.
Yeah.
Okay. He's averaging around 1.5 to 2 losses a season. Okay. I get it. You don't want to have
amazing accomplishments.
Amazing accomplishments.
But this is the absurdity of it. But continue what you're saying.
But me, as an outsider looking in, I would lose to Michigan every single year for the rest of my life if it meant multiple dynasty national championship runs. I don't care.
I don't know if
I would lose to Bama. I would lose 1,000%. If losing to Alabama meant that I won a national title, if losing to Arkansas meant that I won a national title, by the way, it happened.
Yeah, but I just don't know. Wait. But I just those are big rivalries, and Alabama is definitely bigger. But it's not on the same level as Ohio State, Michigan.
No, there's one goal in the beginning of the season if you're Ohio State.
It's to win a national title.
F Michigan if you're Ohio State then. I get what you're saying. I understand the premise of a rivalry. If you ask the New York Yankees, the Boston Red Sox, you ask any organization around sports, you know what they don't care about? Let me tell you what they don't care about. They don't care about losing to Michigan. Now, or their rival, whatever.
Okay.
I was trying to make the equivalent. I could give 2 Rudy Poos. There is one goal. Like, let me ask you this question. If you didn't, hold on, let me just ask and you respond. If the only loss that Notre Dame would have had this year would have been to USC, but you won a national title, would you have cared? If the roles are reversed, do you care that much?
I think you're missing what I'm saying here.
No,
Wait. What I'm saying, when I'm bringing this up, the reason why I'm bringing this up, it has nothing to do with me throwing out there like, oh, he's a failure if he can't beat Michigan. It's not what I'm saying. And I'm not saying that like that has to be higher priority over winning a national championship. It's not. I'm trying to point out the absurdity of this, that he has now legitimately confirmed that he is the second best coach in the sport. He is contractually and also accomplishment. He is the second best active coach in the sport at this current moment. Maybe Dabo goes ahead of him if he can get back into some playoff winning, in a playoff winning mode. I'm bringing this up to say that it's obscure. It's really obscure that he can't get past Michigan. Like in 20 years from now, when Ryan Day is retired, how are we going to be talking about him if this is his recognition of having won national titles, but losing to Michigan as much as he did? It just feels weird. That's what I'm bringing up here.
I wouldn't care. He's 2-4 against Michigan. Okay, 2-4. And I understand that you're losing to a team that ultimately you just do not want to lose to. But here's also a truth. You went on a run that nobody in college football has ever done. Like Ohio State fans that will watch this, put it in the comments. If you're watching a clip, you're watching it live right now. What would you rather? And let me just tell you this. If you would rather beat Michigan and lose a national championship or not get to a national championship, I'm sorry, I love the Ohio State people. They've been really receptive of us. Then you're an idiot, because there is one goal that you have in this.
I get that.
Here's the truth about Ryan Day's legacy that's being built. What is Kirby's biggest problem? The number one guy that we have on the pedestal can't beat Bama.
But they're not head-to-head rivals like that. It was Nick Saban and Kirby that were more so head-to-head rivals.
Every one of these coaches had these vices. What was Nick's? Just throwing this out there. Nick was about 500 against Gus Malzahn for a long time. The rivalry before that, he was 500 against Les Miles. These things continued. They keep losing to their rival. But we don't talk about Saban in the sense of, oh, shit, they lost to Auburn. Oh, shit, they lost to LSU again. Because he kept going to national titles and winning them. So what's the difference? Like, what is it? And you can't say that the Alabama-Auburn game is not just as big in the South. The Iron Bowl is just as big.
No, it is. I'm not trying to say that, like, suddenly that is more important than winning a national championship. But it's so strange to me that, like, we're sitting here and I was trying to paint this picture of, like, we're sitting here and we're talking about and we're praising Ryan Day. That would have been the simple angle if we jumped in this segment and we go, oh, Ryan Day deserved the contract, he won a national title. This is one of the rare coaching because it's more rare than the examples you just provided. Yes, Nick Saban did have some issues against some of his rivals. Yes, Kirby has had issues against some of his rivals and has not been able to consistently beat them. But now that Jim Harbaugh is gone, the expectation this past year was supposed to be boat race them. And he lost to Sharon Moore in his first year with no quarterback, without some of their most dangerous players that are going to go on to be premier all-pro NFL guys that they were without, and they still lost to them. It just feels really odd to me that there was such a quick shift. There was such a quick shift between us saying that he didn't fit to now he deserves the contract.
Well, first off,
I know. I'm not saying that to you. I'm saying that the national narrative was, and I even acknowledge
narrative around Ryan Day from the beginning when he took the podium as the next head coach taking over for Urban Meyer was unrealistic. So it was vastly.
What happens when you take over a national championship winning team?
Well, if we're just being honest, you're tied for second in national championships behind Alabama with LSU. What's the perception and the reality of the entire situation? I do think that Ohio State fans, and boy, I'm going to catch hell for this one, the overreaction to him is like, brother, he's been in 2 national title games in 4 years. 2. So half of the time he's getting to a national title. He's 1-1 in those situations. So, Joe, if I told you, let's take the labels and names off a coach because I have this name written down.
Okay.
What if I told you that there was a coach out there that got to 2 national titles? I'm not going to tell you if they won them or lost them, but they got to 2 national titles. They're running 92+% of all of their games. Who would you think that I'm talking about? Now, the realistic nature could be I'm talking about Kirby or I'm talking about Ryan Day. So the nature of the beast here is I think that we put narratives on some of these coaches. The extension, brother, if you told me that the floor was 11 wins, nobody else can say that, by the way. Nobody. Nobody's out here saying as a head coach that my floor is 11 wins. No one. So that's the part where I get at that when I look at Ryan Day, you're right. You said he might be the second best head coach. I don't know if I'd put him there yet because, look, Dabo, he's got to 6 playoffs in 8 years.
We're talking about, like, current moment.
If it's current moment, then yes. Okay? But there comes a part where he's 70-10. He's 5-3 in playoff games. He's 1-1 in national championships. He's been there since 2019. I'm not giving him – I'm not bashing him on a loss to an Alabama team during COVID. I think that he has been – for what it's worth, and I remember we talked about this a little bit too. The article with his wife, name a coach that's under more pressure. Joe, they're talking about death threats. They pull their kids out of school. Like this is insanity for what this man goes through. And look, I think he's one of the best in the sport. I think that this extension solidifies what he has actually been.
This is part of why I'm bringing this conversation up. Because the clear framing that you just brought up there is the current truth. What I was bringing up is not my belief. It's not my belief that, like, he can't get past Michigan. It's a problem. Not my belief. I'm mainly pointing out that that's part of the conversation. The way that you framed it is the correct way. There is immense pressure. Most coaches would have crumbled under this pressure. And to a degree, he did kind of collapse into the pressure a little bit this past year by letting it get to him so much that their preparation against Michigan was just a total S show, was completely out of any realm of how they should have approached that game. Completely overthought it, as we talked about on this podcast. The way that he is and who he has become as a coach, he deserves to now be in that conversation as one of the best active coaches. He deserved this contract. He deserves to, going forward, to be given a large, just a massive amount of grace for any failures or any underperformances in the future. You win a national title at your school and you have that many wins that you just mentioned, you deserve to sit where you are and to accumulate, the amount of years worth of buyout money that you have built up. He is one of the best coaches in Ohio State history for what he has accomplished. And what's also being missed that we haven't even mentioned, he's going to go on and win another national title at Ohio State. I truly believe that he will. Once you get past the first one, you know what it takes to build that program and that team up to put them in a position to win a title. And the recruiting is already there. But again, just it just feels very odd. It just feels really freaking weird that this is where we are. We're talking about a coach who has one team that he can't beat.
Well, I'm just going to throw this out there.
Okay.
Then if he wins another one, then he's better than Tressel. He's better than Urban. And he's better than some of these others that they've had there.
Yes, he immediately leaps up to the top. Woody Hayes, I think, is the only coach to win multiple.
Yeah, I mean, look, I you know how I am. If you didn't play for it, I'm not counting it. Sorry.
Oh, come on. Woody Hayes was a legend, though. So, he's still
a legend built by the media in the sense of that you could lose a game, and then there could be a team out there that also lost a game.
Let's not do that bit. Would you agree that Woody Hayes was the greatest Ohio State coach? So that is now who he enters the debate with, and he had five. He had 5 national championships.
But I'm just going to throw this out there now. I would legitimately put him above championship or not. I'm not counting championships. It's a different age, different era. I think Ryan just gets a little – look, the Skip Holtz thing or the Lou Holtz thing, all this kind of stuff reminisces. And when you're losing and you lose in some of these big spots, it takes a little bit of a toll. Right now, you're going to have to knock them off. Now, here's the last thing I'm going to say on this. When you win a national title, 2 things can happen now. Number one, either you keep going on with that stride and you get – it's like the wolf that gets the first taste of blood. You keep wanting to go back, and you'll do everything to get it. Or you take a big sigh of relief. Which one's it going to be? It's never an extreme. It's always one extreme to another with these coaches, man. It's not normally based in the middle. Okay.
Yeah. By the way, to answer that question that I brought up, Woody Hayes is 5, Ryan Day is 1, Urban Meyer is 1, Jim Tressel is 1, and Paul Brown is 1. So there is, if he would win a second national title, and Ryan Day is on the younger side of head coaches, he would end up going on to being the second best. Now, to win 5, we can have that separate debate of how he would need to pass Woody.
Hot take.
Okay.
He did it in the era where Urban and Tressel couldn't.
I think that well no, well, what do you mean couldn't? They each won a national title.
Yeah, but neither had the portal, neither had NIL. I mean, they were one of the teams that were in the forefront of going out there and spending the money. By the way, did you see the article? $8.5 million deficit was football this year.
Yeah.
They don't give a shit. They're going to make that up quick. So
right.
that part doesn't matter to them. But I'm going to give you a hot take. I think that they're more consistent than Urban's teams. I think Ryan Day has been more consistent because if you think of Urban – I know this is going to go – people are going to get mad at this. My man was losing to Purdue and getting blanked.
That's true. And they had that bad loss to Ohio State.
My dude would go in the playoffs. Remember when they played Clemson in the playoffs and they got blanked? I mean, listen now. I mean, people ain't going to like that. But go look at it and see. I mean –
he was also only there for 4 years. He wasn't there for particularly long.
No, he was there for 6 years. Right?
2012 to 2018. Oh, no, sorry, that's 6. Still, but that's not Ryan Day has already been there. My ability to count is
that's that New Jersey math right there.
All right. Hey. Ryan Day's been there the same amount of time as Urban, though. So I would agree with that. I mean, there's been a lot more consistency, but the difference is that Urban took it over when the program was in shambles. Yeah, right. They rebuilt a little bit, and then he hands it off to Ryan Day.
Well, they got banned. Remember, they were undefeated that year in that year one where he could have gone to the national title. That is also fair. Okay. Joe, some other big coaching news. The Hall of Fame running back, Marshall Faulk, is heading to Colorado with Deion Sanders and Coach Prime. There is another yet Hall of Famer that's on this staff. We talked about this a little bit before, but to get into this Marshall Faulk hire, your thoughts?
I freaking love this. I always get excited seeing former players getting into the world of coaching. I always have a little bit of pause when a guy immediately jumps to being a head coach because I kind of need to be proven that they know how to run a team. But to be a position coach, having that just depth of knowledge and understanding of what it took to play at a high level, to then be able to pass that on to a young group of guys, it's freaking awesome. Marshall Faulk is going to be so significant for this team in recruiting, for player development. He could be an average level coach, but just having him in the room and having him leading these running back meetings is going to continually help this roster and this team grow. I look at the results that Warren Sapp produced this past year. I know that's not a direct one-to-one because they're two different dudes, but Colorado's defensive line improved. They got better the year that he took over, and they were able to go and sign one of the best portal gets that we brought up this cycle by getting Jaheim Otis. I think that is the easiest indication for me early on, Blake, that this Marshall Faulk move is another step forward in a great direction for Deion Sanders to continue to grow this program.
I'm conflicted because I agree with everything that you just said. I think when you have the running back of a guy like Marshall Faulk, I mean, there's just so much that he knows that he can teach and develop in that room. I don't have a worry about the coaching aspect, the development aspect of this, because, man, I mean, this guy's literally forgotten more football than any of those running backs will ever know in their life. I think there's two things that I think about this, though. They got to get better in the running game. And the last time that we talked about Colorado was in our Big 12 evaluations and looking at them. Joe, there was one thing that Marshall Faulk did that other running backs just couldn't do, and that was catching the ball out of the backfield, running routes. Yep. The greatest show on turf. I mean, the way that they threw him the football, it was a massive deal. I don't know if this hire changes the outright philosophy of what they want to do. I need to see it change. I need to see more production in the run game. Do I think we could go from a year from now and you could tell me whatever you want to tell me and I would believe it, meaning they do really well, they run the football really well, or they can't run the football at all and it's just the same old with Colorado. Nothing will surprise me here. For the hire, I really like it, right? Like I really like that you're bringing in somebody of this caliber to teach a running back room that has the talent, as we've discussed, that can do some really good things. The question now becomes is that it has been their biggest problem. It is their biggest problem. It's not the secondary. It's not the front seven. It's not necessarily completely always the offensive line. It's the willingness of wanting to line up and run the football. Nobody has thrown the football more in the 3 years than Deion Sanders and Shedeur Sanders. No one. Like literally no one has more dropbacks in the game, especially when it comes maybe some in the P4 when they got there because of just overall air raid. They throw the ball too much. Now, Caden Salter can easily change that, but that's a different scenario of what we're not talking about a running back. Here's my ultimate thought. I wonder in this hire if you don't do what Sark does. Let me explain. Instead of just handing the ball off, you get a little bit more unconventional in your run game and throw it in the flat and get 6 yards. I think that Marshall could whatever your philosophy. So I get there to say this. It doesn't really matter the philosophy in some aspects because he knows how to do it all and he can do it all. So, but I don't think that this hire changes what their biggest overall issue is. Does that make sense? Like, I understand. It makes sense in my head. I love the hire, but at the same time, I don't know if it changes the outright philosophy.
I understand what you're bringing up, which is just generally, it's an awesome move to bring in Marshall Faulk. Like, there's no other coach in the sport that's going to be able to do this. No other coach in the sport is going to be able to attract a former Hall of Famer to join the coaching staff. It's just not done. Also, for a team that has limited resources compared to an Alabama, an Ohio State, whatever top premier program that's going to be able to dole out massive contracts for assistant coaches. It's a great hire. But I do understand what you're bringing up, that if the running backs improve and they get better and they maybe bring in a 4-star or maybe even a 5-star and they bring in some like real premier running back talent because Faulk ends up being a strong attraction point for recruits, it doesn't improve the play calling issues. I'm a Giants fan. I dealt with Pat Shurmur when he was the head coach, and I dealt with his play calling. Pat Shurmur has been the only like super negative thing that I have brought up with this Colorado team, because he mismanaged and misused Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley when he was the head coach. He had a lot of opportunities for that team to have been very productive, and he completely misused them. And one of the biggest issues that Pat Shurmur had is that he didn't know how to freaking run the ball. And to elaborate on that, the timing of it. There was no intent. There was no creativity. It was every first down, they would run the ball and they would get 2 yards. Or they would throw the ball on first down. It would go for an incompletion with a young quarterback who wasn't very consistent. And then it would be second and long. They would run the ball with Saquon Barkley between the tackles. They weren't getting him in space. They weren't getting him the rock to create and to break tackles like he's doing right now with the Philadelphia Eagles. And then it would end up being third and 8. And it's to an extent similar to what we're seeing right now with Colorado, that the usage of the run game is completely off track. Pat Shurmur's the problem here. And I keep saying this. I don't think anyone should be defending Pat Shurmur. I think that the passing production was great, but it's really easy to put up the numbers that they had when you've got a future minimum top 10 pick quarterback and a Heisman Trophy winning athlete that was one of the best receivers in the sport this past year. To put up the numbers that they did, and with that whole receiving room, it's a cakewalk. If the offense takes a step back and they're a little bit slow, like we need to really start having that conversation about Pat Shurmur. We really do. The problem is Shurmur. It has nothing to do with anything else in my eyes.
Well, I think you can have it now. That's my overall point. So you had the best running back in the game, and you didn't want to run the football. What does Marshall Faulk or Tommy Robinson, who's now there, what does that have anything to do with what their philosophy is going to be on the field? You could hire Jesus Christ Almighty, and if Pat Shurmur does not want to run the football, he's not going to. I mean, Joe, here's the problem that we have in the running game around college football. Here's the truth. First and 10, you run it for 2 yards. You don't want to go back to it because it's only 2 yards. Why? So you're third and 6, you're third and 5, and you got a manageable conversion with the freaks of nature that you have in your outside. You mean to tell me that you don't have confidence in Shedeur Sanders to complete a pass on third down with the special stuff that he's done? Look, man, I again, Colorado fans come in our comments, okay? They get mad when we don't praise every single little thing that they do. And I am just going to tell you, if you do not change the philosophy of running the football, name every single conference champion. Who won the Big 12 a year ago?
Texas.
No, I meant Arizona.
Arizona State. Yeah,
okay.
Arizona State. Yeah.
Cam Scatterboo says hello. I mean, you can do all that you want to do with quarterbacks, receivers, running backs, throwing the ball around, being explosive. That's cool. That's cool. But now you're going to tell me that you, with a top 10 quarterback and a top 10 athlete, as you mentioned, that you don't take a step back? Are you crazy? You better run the football. It does not get simpler. It doesn't. So I love Marshall Faulk. By the way, him being a Louisiana guy, the first thing that I have in here is a signed card, like not a card, but you know what I'm talking about, like a football card. I don't know what they call it.
Like a trading card.
Like a trading card, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if he signed it, but it's right there. Okay, it's literally right here in the office. Love him to death. But you had Saquon Barkley, and now you're trying to convince me that things change from a philosophy standpoint. I'm sorry. I'm with you. I mean, listen, I think that it can in this instance. You have a guy that caught a lot of passes in the NFL. Greatest show on turf was not just Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce, and Kurt Warner. I mean, Marshall Faulk was a dog, and he was a dog coming out of the backfield catching passes. I remember the Super Bowl, wasn't it, against the Patriots? He had like 5 catches in a row. Like, even if that's the philosophy, good. I do think that Deion, for what it's worth, and to finish with this, for what it's worth, knowing your coaches and knowing what can help you also benefits you too.
Yeah.
But, man, you better line up and run that football.
Yeah, that needs to improve. That's the biggest, I think, the final takeaway from all this is that there needs to be a change in philosophy. You bring in a great coach, and then to not run the ball as often as you could, that is what needs to change.
If it doesn't, you're in for a long season. All right, let's move on here. Joe, Florida hires yet another coordinator on defense, this one being Robert Bala. Bala being on the 23 Alabama staff at linebacker, was at Washington this past year. I think that this is interesting because I want to take this in 2 directions. Just how good can Florida be kind of in some aspects going into the 2025 season, the way that they finished the year, and with guys like DJ Lagway. But now you have 3 coordinators, or just outright. Now, I do think that Ron Roberts, for what it's worth, who did last year, will continue to be the head honcho and head man there, clearly. I don't know if this is just titles or what it is, but you do hire a new, quote-unquote, co-coordinator. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in Florida. But now that you bring in another co-coordinator, I guess, in Robert Bala, your thoughts on this?
I mean, this is stupid. What am I missing? Seriously, like, what am I? 3 coordinators. You have 3 guys that are labeled coordinators. And I'm smart enough to understand that it doesn't mean all 3 guys are having say in the play calling. They're not going to be every single snap. No, we need to do this. No, we need to do that. No, we need to do this. And there's 3 guys weighing in. I know that there's going to be some sort of executive say. There's going to be one guy who is the defensive play caller. But why do you need 3? Well, why are we doing this? I brought this up in the open. Billy Napier's biggest problem has been disorganization, being extremely disorganized. As simple as the issues with special teams, running dudes out there that are wearing the same number and getting flagged for that. When you have this level of redundancy, it creates problems. I'm not going to sit here and claim that this is going to completely tank them. I'm not going to sit here and act like having 3 DCs, co-DCs is like such a huge detriment. But it just doesn't make any sense to me. They could go on to be fine, and I actually have high hopes for this Florida team because I really like DJ Lagway, and I think he's going to be phenomenal this year. I think that this Florida team is potentially another 8-win team this upcoming season. But why the hell do you need 3 DCs? That's where I'm just so perplexed, and I think you agree with me.
Oh, I 1,000% agree with you. But here's the thing that I want to throw out there just to kind of make it well known. I look at what Ron Roberts, the DC, did at Southeastern when he was a head coach. He had multiple coordinators. He had multiple co-coordinators. You'll know some of them. You ready? P. Golding, co-DC. Carl Scott, co-DC. You know where Carl Scott is now. So, I mean, when I look at these situations, he's with the Seattle Seahawks, just for people that don't know, he's a DB's coach. But I've seen Ron Roberts as someone that I know do this. I think it's titles, if I'm being honest. Now, there is an outright defensive coordinator. There are other co-coordinators under it. Ron's technical title is defensive head coach, and defensive coordinator, whatever that means. I mean, the labeling on this is dumb. He's the head man. I feel like this is the title. Here's the problem that I have with Florida, especially defensively. I don't think it's going to work. I know you got some skill and you have some players. I also see dysfunction. There are a lot of people in that locker room that liked Austin. A lot of people that he recruited. And I feel like in an indirect way, you pushed him out for a guy that was your mentor or a guy that you've been around. At ULL, Billy Napier's DC was Ron Roberts. So I think that Ron has a very big say in a lot of these things for when it comes to how the defensive side of things are run. I get that. I think that's all good and dandy. There's got to be one voice. And that's more of the problem that I have here is that you're leaning on a guy who, quite frankly, who has a track record of things being a little interesting. I mean, look, you've done this at Florida. You've done this at Baylor. You tried to do it at Auburn before you got canned. I say canned. He moved on, but pushed away. I think there needs to be one voice. In reference to Florida, though, I'll say this. I'm really high on them. I say really high on them. I'm very intrigued by them. I think that the way they finished the season, the pieces that they're bringing back, the pieces that they're bringing in, Joe, Florida is going to be a tough out for a lot of teams.
Yeah,
I thought defensively at the end of the season they got better, especially along their defensive line. They have pieces. It's going to be interesting to see how some of the chaos surrounding them, if it can get cleaned up. Joe, if they improve, they're a 9-3 football team. Think about that for just a moment now. If we're talking about improvement, we're talking about a second year with DJ Lagway. The improvement for them is 9 wins. So I look at them and say, is it achievable? I see what you're doing. I see the vision. I just wonder how achievable it can be. You gave a face when I said 9 wins, but it's
well, you understand why I'm giving a face.
No, I'm with you. But think about this. Like if I said a team, if a team had 8 wins, what's improvement?
No. I'm not giving you a face because of the wording that
you just don't think they can do it.
I just knowing that their schedule this upcoming year is equally as difficult as last year.
Oh, brutal.
I think it's accomplishable for them to replicate what they did. Because this roster's still not like fully there.
No, it's not.
And also, as you mentioned,
offensively though, Joe, I don't know though.
As you mentioned though, this team does have a lot of positive signs, and they've got a lot of guys that they can turn to that are going to be super productive, that they're going to have big years. I just get really confused by this redundancy. And I know some Florida fans going to hop in the comments like, well, actually, this head coach had 3 defensive coordinators, and you should know that means that they're going to win a national championship. That's a bunch of bullshit. That's a whole bunch of crap to make yourself feel good about a move like this. It's odd. It's not normal. This is not a normal thing to do. It could end up working fine, and I know that there is a central voice, and Ron Roberts is the central voice. I just don't understand why we need to have – if you have to go with 3 co-DCs, a head DC and 2 co-DCs is basically how this is. Why don't you just have 1 defensive coordinator and these are position coaches? Like, why do they need to be labeled as such? These guys aren't super desirable position coaches that they need to be handed out these titles. It's not like they're pulling dudes from Alabama staff or they're pulling dudes from LSU staff or Ohio State staff, like some of these other moves that have happened. These are run-of-the-mill, mid-level coaches that are probably up-and-comers, but is Sunseri and Bala so desirable that they were fighting to get them that they had to give them these titles? This is where plays into the confusion from me.
I don't know how to respond to that. I mean, because
there shouldn't be a way to respond to that because it's weird.
Look, man, titles become titles for a reason, for pay increases and how you structure and pay people. I think that you have to succumb to some deals in reference to if you want Robert Bala or you want Sinceri, however you want it. You can't just make lateral moves, right? And I'm not saying that Washington to Florida is a lateral move. I think it's an upgraded move. But there also comes a time where you have a line. Here's why I think it's interesting. Ron Roberts coaches linebackers. What's he going to be doing? Because, I mean, you're bringing in a whole staff where he can just be the elite, the head coach of defense. He's not a position coach at this point. So basically you're doing this to, in some aspects, taking something from offense to give it to defense to try to help. Because your head coach is, quite frankly, going to be your quarterback's coach. Let's call it what it is. I mean, you have two sides of the football. We have not seen this work like this specifically in modern history. Not like this. In reference to them offensively, though, I think that Billy, that's what all he really wants to worry about. I think this is to eliminate stress from Billy, who's a play caller.
All right, fair. That's fair.
I mean, that's the only – well, hold on. I'm not saying I believe that.
I know, but it's a fair way to frame it.
There's no other way to realistically look at it. As high as I am on your running game, as high as I am on your quarterback, as high as I am of what you've done at receiver, they present a lot of problems. A lot of problems. I think you're just taking one coach that you would historically have and doing an analyst role. Or instead of a special teams guy, you're just putting the guy on defense, and you got to give him a title. I mean, there are teams that have 3 coordinators, OC, DC, special teams. The only difference here is they're just giving 3 of them the defense instead of just going for one or the traditional route. I don't know. Florida's an interesting case. I don't think that there's somebody that we're going to look at in the preseason and say they're going to be a bad team now. I don't think
that they'll be bad. It's just a question if they can win 9 games. That's going to be the whole talking point this offseason that you and I are going to have.
The way that they finish down the stretch and running the football with Ball and those dudes.
Yeah.
Listen, man. I mean, they're tough for everybody. Okay. Before we get out of here, Joe, and we go along our Super Bowl Sunday here, Kevin Kelly has been hired by Clemson as the Director of Player Evaluation and Acquisition. He was in the Chargers front office as a scout and doing other things throughout. But a 20-year experience in the NFL, the bigger question more than Kevin Kelly coming in is Dabo moved to the 21st century.
There's 2 parts to talk about with this. There's the Clemson angle. There is the roster construction, front office construction for the sport of football angle. For Clemson, this is significant. We have talked a lot about, and we've criticized. I have especially criticized Dabo for being archaic, for being behind on the times, to not effectively approaching how to build a team and a roster in the modern era. I mean, it came down to signing day, the early signing period, where we were really letting him have it for putting together a pretty weak recruiting class. But since then, he has bounced back with brick by brick moves that have helped this team become modernized. They went after and got Will Helton, who's one of the top defensive guys in the portal. They went and brought and spent a lot of money on Allen as their new DC. They're now in this position where they're actually building a front office. Hiring somebody who's not just an up-and-comer for this role and actually going to the NFL. We're also not going to the NFL to grab. There's a lot of young dudes in the NFL that are great scouts that could hold these types of roles. I know plenty of them. But to go and get somebody who 20 years of experience with the Chargers, who have scouted really well, their lack of performance in the field was a coaching issue. In the last 20 years, they have produced and scouted some really good players, and they have managed that roster very, very well. To have somebody
Austin
with this
Eckler, to your point, Austin Eckler's in his bio, if you want to throw that in there.
Seriously. Like, that's a really, really good example. I think that now knowing and seeing Clemson take this so seriously is a reflection of Clemson's step in the right direction, but the sport now needing to aggressively modernize, to actually aggressively approach this as we need to go and get the faces from the NFL. Otherwise, we're going to keep mismanaging these rosters. The revenue sharing is going to make things difficult for us. So having guys like this that know how to manage these the salaries, all of this stuff, and acquire talent is how they get better. It's very interesting.
What did he scout? High school or college players?
College players.
Interesting, isn't it? Are you going in there to ask him to now scout high school players? No.
Might as well call him like a portal czar. That's what the
I mean, way to go, Trump. But I mean, since we're calling everybody a czar now. I mean, it's very difficult for me to look at a guy that you hired. Now, this can change. I don't know the vision of what Dabo wants to do here. You're bringing a guy that has 20 years of experience evaluating college talent across the country. Who has connections with agents that will be representing college athletes. I think Dabo about to start portaling. I think he got a taste for it. I think he's about to start portaling. You know why? Because he's having horrible times in high school recruiting because of NIL and the portal. He can't build the way that he needs to build. If this ultimately happens, good on Dabo. You cannot. And here's the thing that I think that Dabo was thinking in the beginning. There's going to be regulation. We're going to go on. And I've made some big comments about it. So I can't go out there and change now. He now does not have a choice. And I wonder if people around Clemson put his feet to the fire. I really do. Now, I'll give him this. Joe, he's done some interesting things, meaning Dabo, for only recruiting high school. What would Clemson be if they did both? So we've seen the floor of you not going in the portal.
Yeah.
What now happens when you do go in the portal?
That's why I've really started to, if anyone's noticed, the past month I've really turned my perspective on Dabo and on Clemson. I mean, this is a big reason why is the last high school class that they signed was shit. It was not a good class. It was not up to the standard. There just wasn't that same cachet that we have, but there is still a really good, talented group of guys on this team. Where I'm really curious is what does this team look like next signing day? What does it look next portal haul? I think that we're going to be sitting here on this show saying Clemson's the biggest portal winner.
The internet's going to break. If they get more than 4 portal players, the internet's going to break.
Yeah. Yeah.
And quite frankly, post K Klubnik, then what? I mean, then what? I mean, listen, Joe, we've talked about this ad nauseum, and I'll just end it with this. It's not going anywhere. Not to be political. What did Trump literally do on Friday? He signed an executive order about Title IX. Stay with me. But you know what that brings into? Regardless of what anybody wants to talk about, Joe, they're not coming to a resolution on this anytime soon. It's not happening. So you better adjust. I mean, there's no meat and potatoes of somebody wanting to sit down and make sure that this is going to change. No one. Ted Cruz has been the executive of this for 5 years. We have no more structure now than 5 years ago. Ted Cruz came out with a thing yesterday. Did you see it?
No, you kind of lose me on that. I haven't been paying attention to this stuff.
Well, it's the only reason I'm paying attention to it is because Trump surrounds himself and signs the bill about men and women. I'm not getting in that fight with you. You have your own belief. The first thing that came out of his mouth is that I will protect Title IX. What did the federal court system bring up about Title IX? And when it comes to revenue share, you can do revenue share, but you still have to have Title IX. So none of this so I bring all that up to say none of this resolution is changing. Dabo goes and hires a front office guy from the Chargers. I mean, the actions will show. This is where I'm trying to get at. Actions in college football will show you what coaches are being told and how they.
Oh, I just lost you for a second. You still there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you still there?
Yeah, I have.
That was weird.
I pounded the table and shit just kind of.
You're right though. I think.
I'm not trying to be political here.
No. I get where you were going with that. That everything that's happening and everything that's changing in the sport, needing somebody on your roster, on your coaching staff, in your front office that's doing this stuff. There are going to be more legit front offices that are built out in the next couple of years that are going to completely reshape the sport. So I agree with what you were going with that.
Joe, the lead executive literally came out and said, figure it out.
Yeah.
The NCAA came out with 5 rule changes. 5 on Friday. Nobody wants to talk about them, and it's cool. Okay. I don't want to get into it either because it just paints too much of a big brush. I don't want to get into it. It's fine. Here is the problem that I have. You had the chance right then to tell college football and college athletics to get a collective bargaining agreement. You could have reshaped Title IX to end this. They won't do it. They won't do it. I look, as someone who has a daughter, listen to me. I love and understand Title IX, but there has to be an amendment to this. Title IX was created in reference to when this was not a thing.
Yeah, I don't think that, by the way, to talk about that part, that statement that was put out by, I think it was by the Board of Education or Department of Education that put it out that said that the revenue sharing had to adhere to Title IX. That is already, as you're talking about, has been pretty clearly debunked. Like, that has been completely shot down. That was a recommendation by them. That wasn't this
correct,
is the move that has to come going forward. So you are right. And that was something that we had said on this show. It doesn't make any sense. You would be completely pulling down the sport of college football. And also you would completely ruin the settlement. The settlement would completely go back to square zero if that was suddenly something that had to be a part of this. It's so different from Title IX because Title IX is the distribution of resources and funding that is put into sports. It is not revenue earned that has to be shared. I believe I even brought this.
The school reference to scholarships. It does.
Yes, right in reference to scholarships, and I brought this up. Right. It's like I don't actually know any of the WNBA franchises, but it's like the Lakers make however hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars a year. And then they're required to give part of that to the Sparks. Like they're completely different entities. They're not the same thing. So it doesn't work like that.
And I think, like, for example, how many coordinators are now analysts? We saw Saban do it, and that's cute.
Yeah.
Around the country, it keeps happening. Former coordinator, fire coordinator is now an analyst at Clemson or Florida State or where. No shit. I mean, they're doing what they think is changing the sport, and nobody more political to know all this stuff than Dabo.
Of course.
All right, who you got in the Super Bowl?
Chiefs -1 on BetOnline.
I said on Thursday I was going with the Chiefs. My mind, I'm not going to bet against them. I'm not betting the game. Teams don't three-peat in the NFL.
Doesn't mean it can't happen. Doesn't mean it can't happen.
Give me Philadelphia.
Shit pick.
I don't trust three-peats. Not in the NFL.
I think that we have a unique circumstance, though. Like
I do too. My mind tells me do not bet against Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Did you see the 250 passing yards over under?
Yeah, I'm taking under on that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's going up against a great secondary.
He gonna obliterate the shit out of him.
All right, we'll see.
I'm coming in here tomorrow if he does.
Well, I'm still picking him, so I'm not going to be upset if that happens.
We'll see y'all tomorrow. Have a good Super Bowl Sunday. Peace.